feel that they're going to get rid of me. They're sitting back at corporate headquarters in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and saying, what is this guy doing? We hired in Houston. So I went to my window in Houston Heights. I had 3 offices then. I had opened up 2. There were only 1 that I opened 2. And I looked out the window and I started talking. I said, Father, I said, Lord, now you put me here, and I know you did. I said, they're going to fire me. I'm talking to him just like this. I said, they're going to fire me, Father. And I said, unless something happens. And God spoke to me. And I heard his voice. And he said these words. He said, son, your office is going to take off. That's it. That's all he said. Had no idea how, where, when. And I said, I was so sure it was God that I called my boss at corporate headquarters. I said, Ken, God just spoke to me and told me this thing's going to take off. What? Now they really thought they'd hired enough, you know. For 3 months, I was the laughingstock in this corporation, huge corporation. People were calling me from all over the country. Hey, Dick, heard any more from God lately? I said, you're going to see. Well, I had no idea. What God didn't tell me what to do. So I started looking around, and I noticed that they were paying for a lot of guys to pick up trash around the highways in Houston. And it was a contract thing. And I said, well, I got temporaries. So I called and got on the bid list. Well, then they called me to the bid showing. Well, then it turns out you had to have $50,000 cash to bid. And then you had to buy a fleet of trucks, and you had to have your trailers designed, those big wiry trailers that they throw the bags in. All the safety equipment, flashing lights, you know. I had no idea. You even had to have a trash compactor built in the back of the building for the trucks to come in and unload the trash and compact it. So I'm sitting here going, okay, this must be it, Lord. I can't think of anything else. So I just started putting things together, and I'd go out on the highway and watch the other crews on the highway and with binoculars, and I'd take the times down because you had to bid on sections of highways. So I put this whole thing together not knowing anything about it. Well, my boss came and he said, there ain't no way we're touching this, Dick. You know, and he said, and so the vice president came of this big corporation. He said, I drove him around, showed him what I was doing. He said, Dick, it looks good, but I'm not giving you an okay, buddy. I said, this is too risky. So then the president of the corporation comes, and he's a big shot. He's a buddy of the blocks, H&R Block. He comes in and he says, all right, Dick, show me what you got. So I drove him around. I showed him again all the things and how I'd figure this out. He takes me to lunch in an expensive restaurant. We're talking, and all of a sudden he just stops and he looks at me and says, go for it. Oh, was I happy. And my boss was scared to death. He said, now we got to make money. I said, have a little faith, Ken. Yeah, Dick. Ken didn't believe in God to begin with. So everybody's watching this now, and they're not making so many jokes anymore, but they're still thinking I must be some kind of nutty guy. So Jackie and I go down for the bid up in Austin, Texas, and everybody in there that's bidding on this contract has done it before and knows all the ins and outs and everything. And I thought, okay, Lord, I mean, I don't care. Anyway, they go through all this stuff and they name us the winners. And the first contract was $1,250,000. And we won others after that. So we won this, and I walked out and picked up the phone in the hotel there, and I said, called my boss, and I said, Ken, in the name of Jesus, we just won this contract. And he said, well, good, Dick, now I hope we can make money with it. I said, Ken, you know, no faith at all. So I went out and I bought this fleet of trucks. And I went and designed these trailers and had them made. And I got all the safety equipment. I had flashing lights on the top of my car, you know, and because you had to have all that to be out on the highway. When I go out to check on the crews, I had to have all that. And, you know, and then we started hiring crews. And I had 3 crews with 3 foremen. And they started doing this, and we started making money that was just unbelievable. And the vice president calls me up and said, Dick, what are we going to do with all this money? I said, drop it to the bottom line and pay my bonus. I got a $25,000 bonus the first year on top of my salary, you know. And this was not in 1983, and I thought I'd died and gone to heaven, you know. So that was the start of that, and that went on for. I won other contracts with that. God just laid out for us. And then they wanted me to go all over the country and teach everybody else how to do it. I said, no. I said, this is going to take all my time. I can't do that. So I was a rising star. Well, the president of the corporation sent my boss unannounced to come Saturday. And he calls me up and he said, Dick, I want you to meet me for lunch. And usually when that happens, you're getting fired. And I said, well, Ken, what are you doing here? He said, just come and talk to me. So I went to the hotel and I met him. And he had a suite. And I went up in his suite and he said, Al sent me. Al was the president of the corporation. And he said, Al sent me. And I said, what about? He said, he wants you to take over the corporation, take over his job as president of the whole corporation in this country. 300 and some offices at that time, all over the United States. And I looked at my boss and I started to laugh. And he said, what's so funny? I'm serious. He sent me here purposely to tell you that. I said, Ken, just leave me alone. I wouldn't last 6 months down there because the vice president of the corporation, Leo Gordon, already saw me as a threat. And he wanted to be president. I said, I'll come down there and you'll make me a vice president. Leo will get rid of me in 2 months. And he looked at me and he said, you know, you're right. Leo would kick you. He'd just get rid of you. So I said, just leave me out here and do my thing. One of the other vice presidents went there. They talked him into it. Leo had him gone after he moved his whole family from Chicago down there. 2 months, he's gone because he was a threat to taking over. And Leo wouldn't let that happen. Well, that's the kind of politics in corporate America. It happens all the time at the high ends. And I'm not a politician. I don't play games. I'm a straight shooter. I tell you the truth. They don't like to hear what I have to say. I don't care. Take it or leave it. This is what I think. And so I left that company after 5 years. I was going to make my life with them. But they were making some really bad decisions. So I decided I'm just getting out of here. So, but before I did, I've got till 2, right? Or 5 till? Okay. Stop me if I, okay. So I went to one of my outside sales girls came to me and said, Dick, you've been promising me you'll come to a Houston Chamber of Commerce meeting with me. And you know, this is when Houston, all the businesses were down, everybody was doing them. They were repossessing 1,000 homes a week in Houston. And so I said, all right, I'll go with you. So I went there, and we sat in this huge hotel ballroom, and the president was up there in the podium, of the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and everybody was doom and gloom. And I'm just sitting there listening. I stood up in the middle of this big room, and I said, "Now, just a minute," and there was just dead silence. I said, I am so sick of hearing this moaning and groaning. I said, if you guys will just work hard and trust God, you're going to do just fine. And the president was up on the podium. He says, work hard, trust God. I like that. I like that. So as soon as the meeting's over, he's trying to get me before I'm walking out the door, and he grabs hold of me and he says, does H&R Blocks have any golden handcuffs on you? I said, no. As a matter of fact, I'm training my replacement now. He says, will you come talk to me? I said, yeah. Well, he owned a company that was placing the top lawyers and doctors in the United States, top 5% of the big schools. Fees in those days were $35,000, $40,000 a piece for each person you placed. And he wanted me to start a staffing company for him. So he said, where do you want to go? I said, Hartford, Connecticut. I always wanted to go to New England. So he said, well, I don't care, you pick it. He said, but how do you know you're going to do well? Because no matter what happens, God's here. Of course, he's Jewish. And he learned a lot when I was with him. But so I went up to and moved my family up to Connecticut. I took 4 days. I went up there. I hired a four-person staff. I found an office, rented it, found all brand new furniture and have it shipped into the office, and found a house to live in, and went home. After 4 days, had it all done. Then we moved the family up there, started the business. And everybody's saying, Dick, we can't fill the job orders. All the other services were saying, we got lots of job orders. We can't fill them. The unemployment up here is 2.7%. I said, I don't worry about that stuff. God will take care of that. Folks, I'm going to tell you, within a month and a half, we became the #1 supplier to digital computers, which was the second to IBM. And I was doing $4 million a year in 2 months up there, my office. And everybody's just floored. And I kept saying, look, I'm not a wonder kid. This is God. This doesn't happen. This is God. We just prayed through this whole thing. So they automatically said, well, will you come back and be the chief operating officer of the whole corporation and be the executive vice president? And I said, sure. So moved the family back to Houston. And the company grew 1,000% the first year I was with them. And the board and the vice presidents on the board, and I was now over them, they were just saying, Dick, how did you do this? I said, I didn't do it. I said, this is God. This has nothing to do with a man. This doesn't happen. This is God. Can't you see that? And they, people have trouble believing that, especially when half of them were Jewish. So I was with him 2 years, but I kept putting out the president's fires. He treated people badly. He's a wealthy man, but he treated people badly. And I'd go into I'd walk through this big office, with people everywhere, and they'd always look at my face to see if things were okay or not. And I'd always walk through, smile, and say, "How you doing? How you doing?" I'd get in his office, close the door, and say, "What are you doing, Bill? What's the matter with you?" Because he would just chew people up and spit them out. And so and I'd tell him, and he'd say, "You're right, you handle it. But he wouldn't learn, And so I finally said, I'm not going to keep doing this. About that time, someone got me into come to Atlanta and take over a company here, which was just a 2-office thing. Well, I came and I started. I was the executive vice president of his corporation, which was in Cleveland, Tennessee, the headquarters. We had offices in 6 states, and he got in trouble. And his secretary kept saying, "Dick, you got to come up here." I said, "You're the executive vice president." I said, "I can't come if he won't let me." He kept me down in Atlanta here with his franchise that his sister ran. And so finally, the FBI arrested him, and he had been kiting $2 million back and forth. I had just bought a big house. The next day I was out. Now, fortunately, 4 days later, another big staffing company hired me immediately when they heard I was free. So I jumped from big salary to big salary. There was not any problem there. So then I was thankful to God. I was just praying the whole time, and God just came through like that. Well, I took over that company, and it grew in leaps and bounds. But the female owner resented me because she had been running the company before I came, and I come in, and within months it's just growing like crazy. And see, she was a very selfish person, is why. You got to treat people nice, and they'll do anything in the world for it, and they'll double produce. And that's the secret. If it's a secret, that's what everybody should do. Well, then she made up an excuse to get rid of me, and she didn't need an excuse. She was, but what happened was I caught them stealing $400,000 from their insurance company, misquoting workers' compensation. And I called down the comptroller. I was on the executive floor. We owned the whole building. And the comptroller came in white-faced. I said, "Sarah, what's going on here?" She said, "I knew you'd catch this. I knew you'd catch it." I said, "What are they doing? This is a felony. Are they crazy?" So I just went into the system and changed everything back to all the money went to the right place. Well, they were in my office with the board the next day. "What are you doing?" I said, "This is a felony. Do you think I'd put my name with that?" I said, "Folks, how'd you like to see your name on the front page of a paper?" And this is in Atlanta, and they were well known all over the country. And so, they found a reason to get rid of me, and I said, "That's fine. I'm not going to work with you people anyway because you're dishonest. I'm not going to do it." So now this is the 3rd time I'm home, driving up in the day till my wife comes out, "Not again," because I never came home early unless I had left a job. And she said, "What are we going to do?" I said, "We're going to trust God." So I'd go in the living room and I'd lay down flat on the floor and I'd pray for 2 days. I'd just pray. I say, "Father, I got kids, I got a house, I got my wife." I said, and God, and people would call me and I'd get a job. The next job I took, same thing. Big public company, huge public company on the New York Stock Exchange. They made me the regional vice president of the East Coast. Well, I found them just stealing. What, is anybody honest at anywhere anymore, So I called up the president and I said, "I'm putting myself in for a 15% pay cut." And I said, to help this company or it's going to go down, and I hope all you guys will follow suit. All the vice presidents, there's a lot of them in a big company like that. Well, instead I was getting calls, "What are you doing? You're making us look bad." I said, "You guys are spending money. You're ruining this company." And so they brought a crook in to run the company. While I was at the board meeting, he walks in. He had stolen $63 million and didn't even spend a day in jail. They brought him in to run this company. He took it over. He had started this company, and they kicked him out finally. He went to Houston and got some young oil guy and brought him in for a hostile takeover. Well, they took it over. He walked in. I said, "What's this?" And they said, "He's going to run the company." I just picked up my stuff, closed the briefcase, started walking out. They said, "Dick, where are you going? We don't want you to leave." I said, "If that criminal's running this company, I'm out." So I went home to my wife and got working. I was just beginning to think, I'm going to have to start my own company. And I did. But I was doing consulting, and I consulted some of the biggest company, one of the biggest company in Canada. I went up there and turned his company around. He was a Christian, and I could pray with him the whole time. I said, God's going to do this. Don't worry about this. We're just going to be common sense people. That's what runs companies, not brainiacs. It takes just common sense to run a company. Treat people well, And his company turned around so big they made a huge donation, tens of thousands of dollars, to their favorite charity in my name that Christmas, because they had turned their whole company around in 6 months after I'd gone up there. And he knew it was God because I told him, and because he was a Christian, he believed also. So that had happened. So I came back, and now I'm really hurting. I don't know what I'm going to do, and because I wasn't getting any more consultant jobs for a while. And it takes time to build that kind of business. And so I'm sitting around. I'm getting behind on house payments. Guy calls me up from Ohio, who is the guy that led me to Full Gospel. He had a personnel company up there. And he said, Dick, what's going on down there? I said, nothing, Jim. He said, well, something's going on because God told me to call you. Next morning, I owed $5,000 in house payments. Next morning, on my doorstep is an overnight envelope, $5,000 check in there from him. I had no idea. He didn't say a word. I called him up. I said, Jim, I can't take this. He said, talk to the Lord about it, and hung up on me. This is God. I'm telling you, this is God. It has nothing to do with the person. If we will believe and walk with God, these are the kind of things that happen. So, I didn't know what I was going to do. I was struggling to get this company off. And pretty soon, a guy who used to work for me in the company whose uncle got busted calls me up and he says, Dick, you want to buy a temp company? He said, I need $100,000 now. I'm going to lose the company. I said, Eric, I haven't got $10,000. I haven't got $5,000. I don't think I have $1,000 in my name. I said, I have no money. He said, what if I finance it? I said, how are you going to do that if you need money? He said, well, work it out. I said, so I called my insurance guy. He said, yeah, you could do that because you have to pay workers' comp for a staffing company. That's why he needed $100,000. You have to pay it up front. Well, I said, he wants me to take over this company, and I have my own company. Now, if I can assume the business into this, then maybe it would work. He said, yeah, you just pay $2,000 up front, and if they all come with you, then you'll have a big bill come 6 months,